I think your mindset needs to be like, okay, can I get traction? Not I deserve traction. You know what I mean?
Dude,
Right.
How many times have we heard Facebook's not working for me, right? Is it you or is it your product?
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are here for another episode, yet another three-way. I'm very excited about this one. I don't know. I think you guys are sick of me saying I'm very excited about this one, but I genuinely am excited about every single one. Especially excited about this one because we got the very elusive Luke on with us. The best media buyer that you've probably never heard of, met or seen in person, caught in the wild right now. We're going to be nerding out a lot today about scaling on paid social. We've been through a few battles around scaling on social for a few years now. So figured we put everyone on this call and see what the heck comes out of it. How we doing, boys?
Doing good.
I have to add, not only is he a giant in media buying, but he's a giant in real life. He is the Bigfoot that is elusive that we actually got on camera to prove that he's real.
Yeah, that was me you saw in that photo the other day.
Oh, you saw that go online, that squatting like in Colorado?
Yeah. I was just wearing a furry jacket.
That's hilarious. All right, where do we we're off to a great start, guys. Where do we want to start with this? Like, we've got a whole bunch of questions lined up that I think we can take us across that journey, but maybe as much as I don't know, I don't think we can talk about scaling without kind of starting at the start and going, when should a brand even start thinking about activating paid media with the idea of scale, right? Not the boost post stuff or not like the whole, like test a little bit here and there, but actually like, let's go.
Yeah, it's a good question.
You know what's funny? On the boost post, I actually met a brand this week. He's like, all I do is boost and it's actually working incredibly. So there's always an outlier, right?
Yeah, I think that's what
they need to start a course.
When I started media buying, that was like in 2012. That worked fine. Like you get 10x ROAS just boosting the post. Yeah, those are the good days. But yeah, I think activating paid media to scale, I think you got to have your ducks in a row. I think there's some certain things that we've seen that you need to have in place in order to be able to scale. Definitely need to have, you need to have your back end sorted in terms of like your retention game, your welcome flows. You obviously want to optimize your funnel. So like if you're sending a lot of traffic, you want to make sure you're squeezing the most out of it. So making sure you got your welcome flows and all your email game up to scratch, making sure that your site is from a user experience. Sorry?
Not on Wix.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it looks like they're upping their game. Their ads are trying to convince me. I'm like, actually, you seen a Wix ad recently? I'm like, it's quite convincing. I don't know.
Ads are dope.
Yeah, maybe not on Wix, but yeah, I think you definitely want to make sure your site is optimized like for conversion. And I think the big one is you got to know your numbers. Like before you scale, you've really got to understand like your margins, and because like if you don't have the right numbers, you can scale yourself into oblivion. I think we've seen that before. Like, yeah, if you think you're doing good in terms of profitability on each sale, but you've kind of like miscalculated your numbers, and then you kind of put your foot down, you're kind of just, yeah, you're scaling yourself into a bad position potentially,
Yeah. I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to go shut my door. But then the second thing after that is, and maybe I can ask this question before I go shut my door. Like knowing your numbers, right? Like, can you break that down in terms of how does knowing my numbers help me understand? Like, what does it even help me kind of like see?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, there's
door shutting time.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. Yeah, that's sort of how much margin I'm making on each sale, potentially. And when we talk about knowing numbers, it's also about knowing my lifetime value as well. Like if someone buys today, how much can I expect them to come back and spend in the next sort of 30, 60, 90, 6 months. Because ultimately, one of the biggest constraints to you being able to scale is how much you're able to spend to acquire a customer. Like that's the biggest thing. Like the lower you can get that, the more you can afford to spend per acquisition, the more you're going to be able to spend, and the more you're going to be able to scale. So knowing your numbers allows you to sail as close to the profitability as you can. Like it really is a constraint. If you told me like you can spend as much as you like as long as you're hitting like let's just talk about ROAS, for example, or let's talk about MER. You can scale as long as you are hitting like a 2x MER. It's very different from you can spend as much as you like as long as you're hitting a 5x MER. You're only going to be able to spend a fraction as much. So understanding your numbers allows you to work out the lowest sort of, either if it's acquisition MER or MER number that you can work to, and know that you're still going to be making money, whether or not that's on the front end or further down the line from a LTV perspective.
Can we just go a little elementary for a second? And Luke, can we break down what are the numbers they need to consider? For example, Cassidy on our team is talking with a brand right now who's already a 7-figure brand, and they don't know their numbers at all. And so me and you know that context and that story. So can you kind of break it down? What racks up into the numbers they need to know so they can be confident that they're not going to drive themselves into oblivion?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much everything, isn't it? Realistically, if you want to have, if you're a business person, like it makes sense that you're across your numbers from a P&L perspective, like, and that includes OPEX, your operating expenses. It doesn't just include like your unit costs. It also includes your whole P&L. Basically, you need to know, you need to know what your fixed expenses are, your variable expenses, because, and also like if I do scale up, how is that going to affect my operating expenses? Because we hope that as we grow our revenue, we get some sort of economies of scale. Do you know what I mean? Like hopefully our OPEX isn't scaling up along with our revenue, so we can get some economies of scale. And
depending on the model,
that's the other thing about scaling is like, as we grow, we need to reassess that number and like, is it still the right number now that we're doing twice as much revenue as we were? Can we actually bring that required CPA up a little bit because we're getting more economy of scale, and that allows us to scale even more? Or can we negotiate better costs for our products so that we're making more margin, lower COGS? So it's not a very specific answer, but you got to know all your numbers basically. Like, and when we're talking about COGS, you got to know like payment processing fees, like import tax,
that's what I was going to ask about.
Cost of
those
packaging.
Details.
Yeah, like when we think about COGS, it's not literally just how much you paid. Let's say you're selling t-shirts, not how much you paid for your t-shirt in China. It's also like the import tax, how much costs you to ship it, the packaging, everything.
Yeah, like because even like the employee cost to like go down the rows, pick and pack it, right? Like what's that broken down cost as well?
Yeah, you can scale without knowing this stuff, but it's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game, like, and I guess like it also comes down to how frequently are you reviewing your financials. Like some people just literally review their P&L once a year when they're doing their taxes, and that's scary.
How often have we heard that from like the brands that we've managed or the clients that we kind of interface with, and they're like, I don't know, talk to my accountant. It's like, wait,
or
you
worse,
don't, you want
just
to,
their
wait,
bank
you don't
accounts.
know, you don't know. Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
it's kind of wild. And some like, I think you get to see some wacky shit when you run an agency, but the amount of times that we've actually like seen brand, high 7-figure, multi 7-figure, and they're like, we don't know, bank account looks good. I kind of have like a green-red little light. As long as it's not red, then we just keep going. YOLO.
Yeah.
Here's a conundrum though, right? Because Luke, you talked about LTV and like knowing our numbers, and then like knowing what can happen when it scales, and then also like website that it's like optimized for conversion. Here's the catch-22. How do you know those things if you don't start sending traffic to it and actually testing it, and then getting those, like, LTV, if I'm like 6 months in to running a brand, kind of don't know my LTV. Or if I haven't sent a significant amount of traffic to my website, kind of don't know whether it's converting or not. I have best guess. I have probably my cousin and my like startup mentor's opinion, but so how do we help those types of founders think through that?
Yeah, I think I guess we're originally talking about scaling, which in my mind is like really putting your foot down and like let's go for it versus just like let's spend some money on ads and kind of see what happens. So I mean what you're really looking for is some sort of traction. Sometimes we talk about like product market fit, but I think that's a very sort of broad definition of what product market fit actually means, but I guess
what do you think it means then? What's the Luke?
Well, no, I'm saying it could mean a bunch of things. You know what I mean? Like, when we think about product market fit, we're probably more thinking about traction. Like, am I making like 30,000 a month minimum? Like, am I doing $1,000 a day in sales? Like, that shows that you've got some sort of traction. I think one of the definitions of product market fit is if your product went away, would people be sad? I think
so many brands, no one would care.
Yeah. So I think that's a real tough that's a real tough benchmark for achieving product market fit. Like, I can't think of any brand where I'd be that sad if it went away, but apart from all our clients, obviously. But
obviously,
yeah, I think we're trying to like get some traction. Like whether or not you're getting traction without paid media, or if you're, I guess, and up until the point we have got traction, I think paid media should be more as like an experimental budget to see whether or not this thing can work. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to treat it like that, not like this is, unless you've got traction when you're spending money on paid media, I think the mindset needs to be, this is to test whether or not I can get traction. It shouldn't be like, this is going to give me traction. Do you know what I mean?
So it kind of sounds like you're saying that they need to have some kind of traction before they start experimenting with paid media, whether that's organic or some kind of other amount of traction from some.
I think you can. Source. I don't know. I think ideally you'd have that, but I think you can use paid media to figure out whether try and get traction. But I think the mindset needs to be different. Like, your expectations need to be lower. Like some people use paid media with an expectation that it's going to deliver them sales. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like it owes you. Like, why is the magic box not giving me revenue?
I'm giving my credit card. I expect something in return. Yeah, it's just not reality.
And then blame Facebook. Like, Facebook's not giving me sales today. Like,
this ad platform sucks.
Yeah. But I think your mindset needs to be like, okay, can I get traction? Not, I deserve traction. You know what I mean?
Dude, right. How many times have we heard, Facebook's not working for me, right? Is it you or is it your product, right?
So like so I put out that tweet, a tweet the other day just about that. So I had a conversation with a pre-launch, a founder that's still in pre-launch phase. They've put a bunch of money into it. They're transitioning and by the way, pre-launch, I mean their D2C side is pre-launch, right? They're already like working in retail and stuff like that. And there seems to be some notion out there that like paid is the way, as in the first step, right? And so the conversation was around like, it was an Instagram DM that started the whole thing. Hey, curious about what Right Hook does. We're in pre-launch. I really want to know, like literally call starts. And it's like, I really want to know the most cost-effective way to start working with you guys. That was the premise, to start working with you guys, right? On the premise of paid. And I go, well, where are you guys at now? Is someone running it in-house? Like, what's going on? And why work with you guys? Like, why is that the premise? Because we want to start paid and we want people to know what they're doing. Have you started paid? No, I haven't started paid. And my whole thing first back was test before you invest, like really test before you invest. If you want cost effective, like test the messaging, test the lander, test the product page, use creators, use micro influencers, and just see what hooks, what angles, what messages, and what creative like works first before you start like now putting like adding quite a fair bit of overhead to your bottom, like to your P&L, just to then start the testing phase even. of finding a like product marketing fit, right? It's just, I don't know. There definitely is some kind of notion in there, or out there. Like you start paid and then it's like, yeah, things just happen. I see all these gurus online or something. They started paid and then magical things happen. Before paid, they were nobodies. Paid's the way to go.
I think to be a sustainable business, you need to, ultimately you're going to have to find an organic way to drive traffic. And so the earlier you can do that, the better. Like if you can get traction through organic, then that's ideal, because you'll want that when you do scale, because otherwise you are beholden to the ad platform, and we all know that it's not exactly you can't exactly count on it, like forever. Like it could be pulled.
Boy, don't we know?
The rug could be pulled. Yeah. Your ad account might get banned, even though you're a premium partner. With Meta, all sorts of stuff can happen, and so I think, yeah. So I think it makes sense that in an ideal world, you want to try and gain traction through your own unpaid efforts.
It's like, what's your risk tolerance too, right? Like,
yeah, because it's going to be expensive otherwise. It's going to be more expensive, 100% more expensive. Like, whenever we're advertising, we're looking at an MER or even AMER, like we're being subsidized. That figure is being subsidized by the organic effort of the brand. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
The more organic effort that's going in, or the more unpaid traffic that's being sent, the more that MER figure is subsidized. So, which is, could be a good thing or a bad thing. But again, if we're looking at the lowest MER we can to scale, then that subsidy helps a lot.
Also, like, do you want the shortcut now, but a lot of risk, or are you willing to be a little bit patient and get some traction before you actually accelerate with paid? Because, for example, I met a brand even not too recently where they cracked organic, but they've been working on it for a year and a half, and they got to over 200K a month organically, and now they want to throw gasoline on the fire with paid, and now they're in a prime position to where like their business is already very healthy. They took the time to really crack their audience, their product, the messaging. But are you willing to put a year and a half into focusing on organic to crack that? You'll be more stable in the long run, but the downside is you may have a lot of capital you have to invest to get to that point otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's 100% a much better scenario. I think also like part of the thing that's got to play into it is like, how confident are you in your product? Because when we talk about product market fit, like, are you just a reseller of products that we are already like proven? Like, in which case, it's not, you don't really need to achieve product market fit. Like if you're reselling like Nike, Nike shoes or something like that, like kind of know that they sell. Whereas if you were kind of invented a new shoe that's like made out of like recycled tennis balls or something, like you don't know whether or not that's going to pop off. So like, you know what I mean? Like that's the difference as well, I think, is like, actually, is your product proven?
I was listening to the guys on the Operators podcast, and they were talking about, because they're all like 8-figure, 9-figure brands on there. And they were talking about how when they think about product, they're always thinking about what's one incremental improvement, so that then there is some kind of unique value prop with that product. And we have a lot of brands that come to us either drop shipping, or they're wholesalers and they do a markup and they try to run paid with that, and that there isn't something special. But if it's already proven, you can still you can piggyback off that, right? But if there isn't something special if there is something special, it's easier to scale. One question I want to ask, Luke, is when it comes to paid, is we mentioned organically, but what are some of the things that the people that we've seen that scale very successfully and the ones that don't very successfully?
Yeah, I think definitely seen it where they've had a community. And so that's either like a really strong Facebook group, a community that's built around like a certain, I guess, niche, maybe. Like we've seen it in the supplement space where like, like that, if you've got, especially, like pre-workout type of space, like a really strong Facebook group that's well engaged, where there's like a really good sort of communication between the brand and its customers. I think that's really, because then you've got all that repeat customer. You can rely on that for product drops and stuff like that.
You can tap into it without paying, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that really helps a lot if you've got like and especially think about word of mouth and like the amplification of your brand through word of mouth and people who are advocates for your brand. Like that makes such a massive difference. Like that's free.
It really is a gold mine. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Not only that, but it's a place you can tap into for content, UGC too, product innovation. Like it's the freaking gold mine if you want to put the effort into building it.
Yeah.
Ideas for hooks, ideas for like objections, pre-launching and testing a product to see whether it's going to hit or not. There's a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
Anything else besides community? Because like, we've been talking about content like internally at our team for a long time. Volume specifically, quality versus volume, quantity,
there's another
all
one.
that too.
If you're like a influencer profile, that can be a significant advantage because people then buy the product just because of you and you have the backing. You are essentially your own media company that you can pipe your product into. That's another one.
Yeah, for sure. I think we had I think content is massive. Like we the fashion brand that probably our most successful fashion brand that we've run it, like they pretty much had a media company almost in terms of their organic. Like they were just, it was almost like like they almost had like mini celebrities as their like their brand ambassadors were almost like mini celebrities, and they were getting a lot of reach and just entertaining content which featured their products. It was just perfect, like.
One thing I would say is that because we saw it is they didn't start off that way, but because of all the paid plus the effort they put into the organic, they became those celebrities too. And then like they grew along with the brand, which is interesting to watch.
Sure.
What kind of quantity should, like, for someone watching this, how should they start thinking about that, right? Like, because we get this conversation all the time where clients want to onboard or like brands want us to manage their accounts, and it's almost like they get this rude awakening when we talk about the volume that they need to prepare for, because there's that base content, and then there's the iterative stuff, and then there's all the stuff that kind of revolves around that. So how should they think about that? Like, sure, UGC, like D2C Twitter's all like UGC this and UGC that, and then you've got the people that aren't in D2C Twitter. They're just thinking about like a Kickstarter style, like, banner above the line type, high production value video. And it's like, oh, do I send you one of those per month? And then you guys kind of chop it up from there. So I really want the people watching this, if they're jumping into it, like, how do we think through volume? And for us, what does quality actually mean?
I think a big thing is diversity of creative. Like, I think, Meta's been talking about this a lot as well. Like, and I feel like that works well. But like quality really, I mean, the bar is, in order for in terms of successful advertising, like the quality can be pretty low by, you know what I mean? Like some of the best stuff is just shot on the phone by the founder. Like, and I think the people that tend to not overthink it are the people that probably end up producing more content and probably end up doing better, because they're less in their head about it, less concerned about, potentially their brand,
the entire world seeing it.
Yeah. But I mean, I can relate, but you know what I mean? But like, I think it's good to have a mixture of UGC, and if you can't get UGC, then I think they're calling it AGC, like actor generated content, like, or content creator generated content. But like, if you're a brand, like, shoot your own stuff. And we have seen, especially for smaller brands, I think connection between the founder and their followers. I think if you're creating your own content, you can help build that connection. It's like, you don't need to be like your own influencer per se, but yeah, I think just not being afraid to just shoot low production authentic content. I mean, that's the stuff that's native to the platform anyway. So when we're advertising, that it looking native is an advantage. It's not a disadvantage.
I actually have a salty take on that disagrees a lot with DVC Twitter. Is I actually think if you're a smaller brand, I think volume is way more important than quality, for the reasons of the feedback loop of learnings. And also, if you care about volume more than quality, you'll let your hair down a bit and you'll let yourself be more free because you're trying to maintain a certain volume. Then if you're focusing on quality, then you're going to put way more effort into a video and then be way more precious about it. Whereas I think when you're older and you're bigger, then you can be more precious. But in the beginning, just crank out volume. That's my opinion.
I want to debate the entire internet about this, right? But all I have is you guys, so I'm going to use you guys. What the fuck does quality even mean? It pisses me off every single time someone talks about quality. That's why I asked that question. What is quality? Because for 90%, like 9 out of 10 people that I speak to, or that, and I think in general that we speak to as an agency, I'm not the one having every single conversation at the agency, but quality is one person's opinion.
For sure.
That's what pisses me off. It's like, oh, I don't like it. It's like, yo, let's get really clear here what quality means. Quality is what's quality to a stand-up comedian. The quality isn't whether you laugh as a stand-up comedian. The quality is whether the room laughs. So like, the hell are you doing looking at something being like, I don't like it. It's not like, go make something else. It's like, what, are you going to buy your own shit for the whole month to like hold up your own stuff? Or are you going to let your audience tell you whether it's converting or not? Like, let's keep our eye on the prize, right? Like, as opposed to let opinions get in the way. It's so dangerous. It's so elusive. It's so like, oh, but I don't like the quality. That's where I get really salty, evidently. Cause it's just like, yo, do we want the creative to perform, or do we want to make us feel good? Well, very fine line, very different thing.
For a lot of people, the answer is I wanted to make. I would sacrifice it making me feel good rather than it giving me sales. Like, some people have genuinely made that choice before.
It's a great marketing pitch, but I think in reality, it doesn't hold up the majority of the time. For example, there's many outliers. You put a lot of effort, even if it's AGC content, actor generated content. You can put a lot of effort, a lot of time, scripting. You could shoot it and it sucks. You could also get someone who puts 10 minutes into making the video and it crushes. And so that's why I personally believe it's a volume game. As you get older and more experienced and you already know the hooks, the personas, cool, yeah, you can put more effort into the creative. But for a lot of brands, I believe volume should be the play.
I mean, and I think good old Papa Yam, when we did the Yammy Noob episode, he was saying the same thing too. He's like, on my come up, I was just filming stuff all the damn time. And it's not going to be a banger every single time, but across time, he almost built up his taste buds to kind of be able to predict what's quality, as in what's going to get the views, what's going to get the engagement, what's going to actually grow his brand, right?
What I like about him is that it's the genuine curiosity. Like, he's still not trying to be precious. Like, that was my perception, is that he's actually just constantly curious, and he allows himself to go to those places of curiosity, even if it's something in left field or it's very normal for him. Like, he likes to go and try those things. And I think that's like a really good habit that a lot of people can learn from, is just be genuinely curious and see what happens. Like, at worst, 10,000 people will see it and you'll turn it off because it doesn't convert. At best, it'll make you $1 million, right? Like, that's a pretty big spectrum.
I think there probably is an element of quality that needs to, when we think about advertising, and just thinking back to trawling through, hundreds of videos to try and come up with a good ad, and a lot of UGC content. I think there is something to be said about, if you're showcasing your product, lighting is it needs to be at least a shot of a good lighted, a well-lit product shot to be included. Also sound quality, especially if you're going to be utilizing the audio from someone talking. If it sounds like in a cave or something like that, that's not going to come across well in your ad. And I think product demonstrations, if you can show the results very clearly, there are some elements that we do need from a quality perspective. Like, it doesn't need to be, you don't need to go to a film studio, but there are some things like that still need to be, from a quality aspect, to be usable in an ad. You know what I mean? Because if your audio is real bad, then you're not going to be able to realistically run that. And it's just not going to come across great. So,
and that's why I think whenever it comes to creative, there always needs to be a debate. Like, there always needs to be at that starting point to go like, okay, during this kind of mutual discovery process, let's understand one another and get to that final product. Because the danger is going to like a production studio, and then, the way that they film and cut it is like the first 8 seconds is like this slow kind of pan in, and you're like,
I hate that.
Right? Because then they go quality equals cinematic. And I came from that world, so I totally, it's like in a world, and then it's a drone shot, city, like palm trees, sunset, and then you go into the stuff, because cinematically, most production people think that way. For them, that's quality, right? Like on social, it's so different. Trying to sell something and make it look native on social is so different too. So it's to keep the eye on the prize is such an important thing. What I really love about this discussion, though, is that we have not even talked about like what goes on in the ad account, like the clicky, like setting, cost cap, highest volume, like all that stuff yet, right? Like already, so much of it is like frame of mind, knowing numbers, getting prepared, conversion, lifetime value, creative, thinking the way to think about it, etc. It's a thing for sure.
Well, one thing in terms of commonality
in a 2023 world.
Yeah, I think one thing in terms of commonality between those brands that have scaled, we talk about like community and other aspects, but like founder mindset is a massive one. I think that's probably the thread that runs through all of the brands that we've scaled is the founder mindset, like the willingness to take a bit of a risk, potentially, like a calculated risk, and to be aggressive. I think that is a common trait between the brands that we've scaled.
And also the curious too, where like there's been times where a lot of those brands that we've scaled aggressively, maybe they weren't in love with the concept, but they had that curiosity, or they even suggested a concept that we weren't in love with, and that's okay too. But at the end of the day, we all had that same curious mind of like, the best ad wins. That's all we're going for, is like the best ad wins. And if we find that we scale it, then we're all happy, right? Because we found the best ad. Doesn't matter where it came from.
Totally. Speaking of best ads, do you guys have anything to show in terms of like what a best ad could look like, just so that we can kind of do a bit of a show and tell?
So we have a bunch. So if you guys don't know what Floorplay the platform is, again, key, Floorplay the platform is, I sit on a...
Do you do that every time you bring
I have to now, because
say that every time.
I was on a call.
After that one experience.
I was on a call. I was like, hey man, do you know what Floorplay was? And he's like, I don't mean to brag, but I'm pretty good with the ladies. I was like, okay, we're not on the same page here. Yes, that platform. So man, like, this is what I think is so crazy, is that anyone can pull up something that is like a top ad, right? And at the end of the day, it could contradict someone else's opinion of a top ad, and that can contradict someone else's opinion of a top ad, and it can even contradict someone's example of what an ad should look like. And at the end of the day, that's why I say volume and curiosity more than anything else. So here's like a Floorplay boards, for example. So this is something that we're actively doing, where we are looking for inspiration for acquisition offers. And so typically these are ads where, based off what we can tell, they have scaled very aggressively. So technically, if you go through this, all of these are top ads based off ad spend. And that's why I think it's so interesting, is that even the creative diversity, which Luke mentioned earlier, is pretty important. Like, none of them quite look the same. And that's why I think you guys can take away from is that a top ad can be many different things. But at the end of the day, top ads speak to a specific person. Top ads also speak to a specific problem solution or an identity that people want to identify as or identify with. And so there's still common themes and there's common traits of a top ad. But in terms of the creative part, I don't think there is one specific style of what a top ad is.
Mm. Do you have any ugly ones?
Oh, I guess yeah. Okay, so I'm actually a massive fan of ugly ads. I have my own swipe folder of just that because I actually believe these are the ones that, in my opinion, are the most native, plus take the least amount of effort, plus also, in my opinion, I've seen them scale very aggressively. So this is one that I've been swiping lately, this brand. This looks like a Reddit post, right? So low production, looks like a Reddit post, an amazing headline, right? 2 guys and 1 ice bath. Like, who's not going to click on that? So whoever did that is amazing. Fantastic. And also, I've been seeing this kick happen a lot. Saying your marketing team is on vacation and just making the ugliest ad you can make. And
yeah,
D, me and you have tried this with the Black Friday challenges. How can we make it look like it's from a phone, right? So this is actual text. This is our review, but it looks like someone just sent someone that text, right? And that's where I don't think there is one common creative type. The most important thing is the messaging and the positioning. And that's what makes a really great ad.
Yeah. And clearly this brand is very okay with exactly. Making fun of itself.
Exactly. And so that's where I think
as well.
It has to be aligned with what am I okay with? Can I let my hair down and try to have fun? Because at the end of the day, people will vote with their dollars what they think of your ads. That's just a fact that I believe in, that I buy into.
And don't hear me wrong, for anyone watching, if you're running like a very nice, like classy female apparel brand or something like, I'm not saying go make fun of yourself. That's not what we're saying here, right? But to have that lateral creativity, the word is creative after all, to get creative, not to embellish too much and go like to, Ray says it all the time. How do you let your hair down and just start playing with it? So that then the media team, we can go away and chop stuff up, try different hooks at the start, try different angles, take people through the entire journey. I really like that smell my load example that you showed a few episodes ago, Ray.
That was great.
Like, that type of a thing. Yeah, that's so then you got mindset kind of flows into the creative and then flows into the volume and then it kind of all clicks together that way, risk tolerance as well.
If I had to draw a line, and if you're either doing this and you're above the line, or you're not doing this and you're below the line, I would say a good ad.
Damn, conscious leadership.
Yeah, I know. I figured you guys would like that.
Yeah.
I would say a good ad, while it's extremely subjective, and I think that's okay, is above the line, I'm making an ad for a specific reason or purpose, or what we tell our team, a specific hypothesis. Below the line is I'm just randomly making an ad because I think it looks cool. That's what I would consider good versus bad. Like, I have a reason, I've thought through something, here's my hypothesis. That would be a good ad. Whether it fails or not is one thing, but like if you making stuff with purpose, in my opinion, is going to steer you in the right direction.
Yeah, I want to hear you guys' opinion around. Mindset, running and scaling an ad account, particularly around like killing your babies in the ad account, right? So
thanks for clarifying. I wasn't sure what you're talking
about. Right. Yeah. Luckily I didn't put foreplay and babies together in the same sentence. That would confuse the shit out of people.
Would be a great
the ability, right? Oh God, a great like a hook for lawsuits. The ability to go into your ad account and be able to just not fall in love with any one concept or any one camp or any one ad that goes in there, and the ability to kind of kill your babies. I think I learned that very, very early on from like our pals in the affiliate side of the game, where they are just ruthless, completely ruthless, almost on an intraday basis because of the volume that they're spending. I'd love to hear you guys' take on that.
I mean, we do have a saying like "be led with data, not emotion," because there is a danger if you've invested a lot into a creative, like if you spend a lot of time, right, in terms of like forethought and briefing, and then the designer's production time, and then it flops. Like the temptation is just to like keep squeezing. Let's just spend a little bit more, maybe, or maybe we didn't test it right. Maybe the day we launched it wasn't right. Let's let's try launching it on a Friday instead of a, like you start making excuses about why it didn't perform. So, and then you're just wasting money because
just voodoo shit. I didn't rub my tummy and pat my head when I was doing it.
I saw a crow like on the way to work, and so I reckon like we need to wait until I see a dove, and then let's
the algo, man. It was just the algo, the dog patch and the algo.
Yeah. So I think you've got to be able to detach yourself because, and some of those hits that you just spent no time, it's a bit like the musicians who've like create hit songs and like, I just walked into the studio and it just kind of flowed, and then it became like this best selling song. I think it's sometimes with ads, it's the stuff that you like the low production stuff. We didn't even do anything. We just ran this ad straight from organic and didn't like do any post production or anything, and it crushed. Versus this ad we spent hours and hours on. You just have to. I mean, at the end of the day, I think every person that's media buying just wants performance, but you do kind of have to let your ego and emotions at the door. For the sake of scale, yeah.
I mean, what really helps is, for example, like our media buying way that Luke, you're the one that spearheaded, is that our team, to help them be led by data, not emotions, is using specific rules that they make decisions by. Luke, can you walk us through like what are some of those rules and how they have to think so that it's emotionless and it's more factual based off data?
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot to it. I guess one of the things is like we want to think about, and I guess it's not really a rule per se, but like we need to think about our account as a system, and so like we think about an ad set as a system. Like any change that you make is gonna make some sort of impact on the other part of the ad account. So like if I turn something on, if I turn something off, our ad account or our ad sets are a system because the impressions are being shared. Different people are going to see impressions from different ads. And so like they're going on some sort of journey in terms of a sequence of which ads they're seeing. So like, one ad might not necessarily be looking, and this is the kind of like breakdown effect, like one ad might not necessarily look like it's performing so great, but it's getting a lot of spend. And there's normally a good signal that spend is, if spend's going somewhere, that's normally a good signal that it's a good ad. And, because Meta's making the decision to put its budget there. So when we're making decisions, we need to look at the ad set level rather than on an ad level and make decisions about whether or not, if I turn this off, the risk is that it's going to affect the journey that is going on within this ad set. So when we look at performance, let's look at an ad set level. If performance is good, let's not touch anything. We want to try and make as fewer adjustments as possible because it affects the learning phase. But we do have rules in terms of like, if it's been below if it's above a certain percentage of above CPA for 3 days, and like let's make a call as long as the ad set performance is also below where we need it to be. So there's some rules like that. But yeah, we're normally trying to make as few as adjustments as possible, really. But if performance isn't there, then we're obviously going to need to make some sort of intervention. But generally, the best intervention that you can make is to introduce a better ad into the ad account or into the ad set, because, if it is a good ad, budget will go there and our performance will go up, rather than trimming everything out to the point where we've only got one ad left in an ad set, for example, and now all the budget's like being loaded on that. And maybe that ad was just picking up bottom of the funnel type purchases. Maybe it was a very direct call to action type style ad. We realize now that we've only got this ad left and we're running all this budget to it, like actually our performance is going down. So there is a bit of a judgment to be made, but we can put in rules in place to kind of guide us in terms of decision making.
Yeah, one thing I want to add is also the decision making in the ad account, but then also on the creative. And you mentioned the rules like around certain CPA. So for example, and this is something you can also talk through as well, Luke, is like when we look at creative. So this is something we use with Motion. We have this creative. We're looking at the spend, and then we're looking at the CPA, right? So obviously, based off a certain CPA target, one didn't work, right? Went past our target CPA. And so that's why I really like the fact that also in ad account decisions, but then also creative decisions to introduce a new ad. If you look at this, now you know which ad performed better. You can come up with some hypothesis of why you think it performed better. So when you go to introduce a new ad, now you already have some learnings to then try to make a better ad. And then like this, like a video, for example. Yeah, you have different videos, have better CPA than the other one. Okay, why is this one doing better?
We're still seeing your image one, by the way.
Oh, sorry. So here, even videos. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, nice.
Even videos, asking yourself, what made that video better? So we could introduce a new, better creative when we need it. Had a better CPA, but why? Why did Facebook spend more on this one than the other? And then we can even look at creative metrics for videos. Thumb stop ratio. Well, this one, the winning ad had a better thumb stop and a better hold. Okay, well, now that kind of makes sense now why it may perform better. But then again, this one had more spend, had a cheaper CPA, worse thumb, worse hold rate, right? So we have to ask ourselves these questions. And so for you, Luke, how do we dissect in a video what's the actual root cause of why one's better than the other?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one. Like, if you look at the actual hold rate on this, it's the actual attention metric, what we call it, attention metric, something called the thumb stop ratio. Like, we normally have benchmarks for that. So, like, for a video, we'd normally want to see like a 30% thumb stop ratio. So anything less than that would generally suggest there's potential room for improvement. So we have some benchmarks around, certain KPIs. So in this case, like obviously all the spend is going to the ad with the lowest thumb stop ratio. Thumb stop ratio is not correlated to performance necessarily directly. Like there is, if you run a correlation against thumb stop ratio to CPA, you're not going to see a strong correlation more than likely. But it just makes sense that if we're capturing more attention, we're going to do a better. We're going to have more people click through from that ad, and we're going to get more engagement potentially, and obviously people are going to, more people are going to see the video. So the hypothesis here is like, and also based on even looking at things like cost per click as well. Like it's kind of one of those tricky metrics. It's not correlated to performance either. But we can set some sort of benchmarks, and we can see like, hey, my CPC here is quite high. You know what I mean? Like especially relative to the CPA. And so I guess the deeper dive we'd want to do here is like, is this creative actually hitting is the messaging hitting the type of audience we want to be hitting? Because in this case, the metrics kind of suggest that we're maybe picking up purchases from people that we're going to purchase anyway. Maybe it's less incremental because our cost per click is high, our thumb stop ratio is low, so the metrics don't look great, but we're getting decent ROAS. So is this actually incremental? And if it's not incremental, is it because we're, because of the way that we're targeting, or like but we tend to just do broad targeting. We tend not to do a huge amount of retargeting, or definitely don't do any interest targeting or lookalike targeting. So in this case, is the actual ad creative targeting more of a bottom of funnel audience, or past purchases potentially? And so are we just picking up less incremental sales? So, I mean, that's just an example, just looking at that of where I'd be going with that kind of creative. Like it's cool if your ROAS is good, but like if all the other metrics look a little bit poor, then the question needs to be, is this actually an incremental ad? Because that's ultimately what we want, incrementality. Also ROAS.
What are some of the ways for incrementality? Like attribution window is one way. What's other ways to kind of find the incrementality?
Yeah, I mean, you need to, if you really want to understand incrementality, you need to probably run some sort of conversion lift test. But there's some basic ways to think about incrementality. Like we think about click attribution as being more incremental than view attribution. So, what we don't have in that motion report there is a breakdown of the click versus view attribution. And so I think my assumption would be, if it looks like it's not being particularly incremental, then that's where I'd first go, is to look at my split between view and click attribution, especially if we're optimizing on 7-day click, 1-day view. And if we've got a high percentage of view attribution, then that would be a signal that maybe we're just picking up conversions that would have happened anyway. So, less incremental. So I think for me, that is the biggest way to assess incrementality. without running a conversion study or getting into triple M type stuff. Like for brands that are spending like 20, 30,000, 50,000 a month, like, that kind of investment in like really detailed attribution lift type studies might not necessarily be worth it. But we can kind of make some proxy type ways to deal with incrementality. I mean, one way to look at it on a basic level is just like, if my spend goes up, does my revenue go up? And likewise, if I cut a campaign, like if let's say I had a retargeting campaign and like I had some question marks about the incrementality, like I just turn the remarketing campaign off. Does it make actually any difference whatsoever to my sales? Like 9 times out of 10, probably not. That's controversial. Maybe
YOLO.
Maybe not 9 times out of 10, but like a good portion of the time, you could kill your retargeting and probably not notice a difference in your revenue.
It's also a function of spend, though, too, right? Like, how many times have we talked about that? If you're spending $10,000 a day trying to acquire new customers, cold traffic, and you're spending $1,000 a day bottom of funnel, but you're making 20 grand a day on Shopify, then like retargeting, it's not even spending enough to make an actual statistical measurable change in acquisition. It's just not. You'd have to, by multiples, you would have to increase it to actually know for sure. Like, for example, we did a study with a brand who's spending a couple $100,000 a month between Meta and Google, but Meta is taking up 80% of the budget, Google is 20% or less. And the reality is, while both are statistically correlated, is that the scale of the meta spend is so much greater that for Google to even have a measurable impact, you would have to do what Luke said, and that's do an actual conversion lift study, where we're going to increase the budget by multiples, so it kind of overtakes some of that gap for us to actually see, does it actually drive incrementality or not? Or measurable, that is.
So, yeah, it's. I kind of hate that we only got to the nerdy end closer to the end. It almost feels like there needs to be an extra hour tacked onto this. But this is a really great primer because there's so much that goes into it besides staring at an ad, like a business manager dashboard, and then just, kind of clicking stuff around. There are a lot of considerations to interpret input as well as interpret output as well, and then extrapolate from there. So it's not just what you see is what you get. Unfortunately, not as simple as that. Now that we're close to the top of the hour, if we are to think through or talk through, and if you had, like, I hate to use this, but if you were in an elevator and someone said, "Hey, listen, I got 60 seconds. Like, how do I actually brace myself to start scaling an ad account?" What would it be? Yeah, you got 60 seconds.
Know your numbers for a start. Get some creative, get some content churning. So we've got some stuff to make some ads. And make sure that you're looking after the people that buy from you so that they come back. Because that's going to help, offset your cost per acquisition, and also make sure you look after the people that haven't bought from you but are interested. Like in terms of your email list, like keep them engaged, and try and find another way to bring traffic to your site that isn't from paid.
Nice. Ray, do you have a different or spicier take than that, or a salty one even?
Oh yeah, definitely. Is shut your mouth, put 6 months of effort in.
That's so good. Homie just drops out. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Sick.
Peace.
Just does a Dave Chappelle.
I'm here. My camera stopped. Dang it.
Does a Dave Chappelle and just like throws the mic. I'm almost like debating whether we should keep that in or not.
Oh, we should. My camera just died, so I have to. I gotta. It's not letting me
just turn on your turn on your MacBook.
It's not letting me. It won't let me switch to it. It's just grayed out. Sorry, guys.
That's weird. That's weird. Well, since that's happening to Ray, I'll give my spicy little take in here. Do everything that Luke said, and I'll add one more in there. Don't ask your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband, hey, what do you think about this ad? And then go off the opinion of that, and then make decisions over whether the ad is good or not. I think that, and second one, don't run out of inventory. Like that's something that's if you're wondering how to scale eight figures, one of it is they have shit to sell. Like really, and they know what sells, what is secondary to that, and what is tertiary to that, and then they kind of allocate accordingly. We can spend hours on this, but we won't. We'll kind of leave it here, and we'll get into.
I think we should do another one on media buying. We can get a lot more tactical. That was just like the surface level.
Yeah, that absolutely was surface level for sure. Let's definitely do that, Crisp. We'll.
I'm doing everything I can to turn this thing on. It won't work.
We're doing great. We're doing awesome so far. This is usually where just watch the YouTube analytics just go like, or they stick around because like they're like, what the hell's going on with that Ray guy? Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Luke, thanks for jumping on. I really do appreciate that you came on today. Ray, Chris,
did he just freeze? Oh my gosh. It's a train wreck at the end. Even deeper.
I love it. This is the good stuff.
You're the only one consistent.
Yeah, that's because I got a PC.
Oh my gosh, that argument again.
I'm running off good hardware.
Well, I'll leave you with that. If you love PCs, actually, I'll turn it the other way around. If you hate MacBooks, let us know in the comments. If you hate Windows, let us know in the comments. That's the best I got. We'll see you next time. I think it might be another 3-way. Who knows? It's turning into a bit of a theme, whether it's 3, 2, or 4-way. But all right, we're out.